You know, I, as an intellectual, I've been reading things that intellectuals read. Harry Potter. It's all in Britain, and I remember reading it as a child and thinking, wow, Britain must be so amazing. And to me, it was this magical, mystical, beautiful place. You know, because I was reading Harry Potter, and that's how I got to know Britain. And when I visited Britain, first time I was 13 years old, I was not disappointed. It was magical. It's everything I thought it would be and more. This Harry Potter enchanted feeling. It had castles, architecture, and gloominess, and everything was different. And now I read it again. And I've been in Britain not too long ago. And yes, you can guess that I've been thinking, wow, this book feels outdated. And not because the lack of cell phones, but because it feels so British. Classical British, celebrating British culture. Where are the immigrants? What would Harry Potter look like in today's Britain? And in order to do that, well, we have to sprinkle in some jihad. And the reason I've been reading this book, just so you guys know, it's because it's been Yom Kippur. The book I actually was planning to read is this one, but my brain that was fasting was like, that's too difficult, girl. And then, of course, I wanted to read this book. And my brain was like looking at the bookshelf and was like, hey, check it out. You have the first Harry Potter in Hebrew. And my brain was like, English is hard when you are hungry. So read this one. And I didn't go back to the first book almost at all. So I'm not going to lie, it's an annual occurrence during Yom Kippur that I find myself reading Harry Potter. So it's not a one-time thing. And I usually don't choose the first one. That means that reading it took me back to third grade. So for those who don't know who Harry Potter is, what the book is about, I'm gonna make a quick review of the book. All right, so Harry Potter is just this guy that had been orphaned from his parents and he grows up with his uncles. One day, at his 11th birthday, a giant comes in knocking on the door, telling him, hey, you're a wizard, Harry.
You're a wizard, Harry.
And Harry says, what? And says, yeah, you're a wizard and your dad didn't die in a freak accident like your uncle and aunt are trying to tell you, but a terrorist murdered them. Oh wait, jihad fits in, right in. Oh my God, finished. Found jihad. Oh, no, but the Voldemort didn't have that kind of... His parents were murdered by Voldemort, which is an evil wizard that had a cult-like following. And then he disappeared. And so Harry went to school, learned magecraft, wizardry, and then there's this whole arc. So one of the things that the book, or I think maybe external materials outside of the book allude to is, wait, so there are people who have that power, and yet they allowed genocides to happen? I mean, yes, I get it. People who don't have wizarding power are maybe not as human, right? So why would they stop it? But you know, some people really did have parents or family members without magical powers. Wouldn't they want to intervene or something? Which the simple answer was, hey, they were at war too. They were kind of busy fighting, you know, themselves, which makes perfect sense. So now that jihad is happening all over the world, could it be that the wizards in Harry Potter would have struggled with the same problems we are struggling with? Meaning there are people that do jihad and part of the Islamic terrorist network. Would it make sense? And the more I thought about it, the more I realized it makes incredible amount of sense. I'm gonna start with breaking it down into several aspects. First of them being theology, religion, doctrine, moral system. All right, theology. The magic world in Harry Potter has this issue with people who are born to parents that are not magical themselves. There are all kind of blood labels that are being heard throughout the series about them stealing their magic, or it's being weird. How come parents with no magical abilities suddenly get magical children? And therefore, they shouldn't be accepted to school, according to one of the founders of the Harry Potter school, Hogwarts, Slytherin, right? He said, well, I don't want people who don't come from a magical family to go to the school. Makes sense. And I think it would make a lot more sense if we think about it in terms of class and not in terms of race. If we think about it in terms of class as like a caste system or maybe royalty, you can only be royal if you are born into royalty, and you don't want those who bought their title in your school because you're a Puritan like that. So I think if we put it in that perspective, that would make sense. But I feel like the series tries to hint that it's being more equivalent to race issues, which here is my question. Why wouldn't they have a race issue themselves as people? I don't think there is anything that is stopping them from having a race issue. Why does it have to be just this class system of Muggle-born versus non-Muggle-born, which is Muggle is the non-magical people. They're Muggles. That's how they're called. So I just don't see why there wouldn't be just a classical racial issue. Honestly, why not? What would stop wizards from thinking wizards from Africa are lesser than? They have the same differences, so why would they not have that? Maybe because they have goblins and different creatures as well. Maybe that would unite them under the umbrella of one race, right? Because you have all the other creatures like the house elves and stuff. But honestly, I don't see that ever stopping humans. Maybe they had race issues, but it wasn't relevant. It's because we're talking about the 90s, and then we already had the arc of 1945 wizarding world that was at war back then, so maybe they had race issues back then. So Voldemort, which is the bad guy in the story, was raised in an orphanage, and he was a bully to begin with. I just don't see why he would care if somebody is Muggle-born or not, except that he just happened to see an ideology that was already there, and he just wrote on it. It was like, okay, I see that something is already existing, and he happened to discover that he belongs to not only royalty, but he's the descendant of Slytherin himself, which is one of the founders of the school. So he is very much royalty, like one of the real royalty. So it's like, okay, well, I belong to that class, so there is no problem here, hiding the fact that the other half of his bloodline is Muggle, but, details. If we undress all this fluff about Muggle hate and everything like that, he probably was looking for power. He was looking to dominate. He was a bully from birth. He didn't even know why he thinks he's better than anyone else, but he was already bullying everyone else in his orphanage. No problem. Was it that he cared so much about somebody being a Muggle-born or not? Or was it just that he found this very convenient excuse to gather followers who already had a tendency to believe in something that was allegedly taken away from them by those who, to them, shouldn't have any power, magical power, or money, because they're not part of the class system. But guess what? There was a way healthier, better way to deal with that. Just encourage the magical families to have more babies so that the non-magical born wouldn't, outnumber them the way they did. But no. He wanted power. He didn't care about the actual thing. That's what I personally believe. So that brings me to segment 2, psychology. If we strip it down to, So what kind of archetype does Voldemort represent? Like everybody, I think it's the easiest thing is to compare him to Hitler. And I think it's the right thing to do, because in the context of jihad, comparing him to Muhammad would have meant that the whole story would have been very, very, very unchild friendly. So this is a children's book. In a children's book, a Hitler type kind of leader is actually a safer bet. Yeah, I'll get back to it. Anyway, I mean, Hitler brought a woman into his chambers to practice a speech. Voldemort couldn't love and didn't seem to have any drive of that sort. So Hitler fits, but the problem is that I don't know how much Hitler liked to do executions himself as much as Voldemort does. I don't know. I don't feel like digging into it. I think he did it to dogs, but Hitler wasn't as hands-on, I feel like, as Voldemort was. Voldemort was very involved, enjoyed the killing. I think that would put them on par with great leaders like Muhammad, honestly. But it's a child-friendly version of it. Anyway, here's the thing that differentiates between the Death Eaters, which is the cult that is following Voldemort, to the other wizards. And that is the rampant use of forbidden curses. So if there is something that the Death Eaters and Voldemort loved doing, is to use one of the three forbidden curses, which are Avada Kedavra. By the way, let me nerd out for a second, okay? So, you know, abracadabra, it means it will be as I say. It's Aramaic Hebrew. So, Evra is I will create. Kadabra is like Kedvara, it's like what I'll say. And it's funny that she said Avada Kedavra. Ki Avada is loss. It will be lost, as I say. And this is how you kill people. You make them lose their life. So Avada Kedavra, that's the killing curse. Loved by Voldemort and his followers. Torture, crucio, something like that. Don't judge me. Sorry, don't torture me for it. That is also forbidden, and they loved using it. And the third is Imperious Curse, Imperio, which makes people do as you say. So it forces people to do what you want them to do. A form of enslavement, torture, and killing. Those are forbidden. You cannot take someone's lives. You cannot take someone's sanity, and you cannot take someone's freedom away. Don't enjoy torturing others. So on one hand, you have power-loving, torture-loving people. And the other hand, you have people who fight for people's rights. So if you strip down the extra layers of racism, classism, different magical creatures. By the way, oh yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, so the Ministry of Magic, after it was taken over by Voldemort and his followers, had a statue of all the different races, magical creatures, carrying a human wizard, as in it's crushing them, saying they're slaves, basically. We can see where I'm going with this. So the psychological factor is of power. Why does it work so beautifully with jihad? What is jihad? How beautiful is it that mein Kampf, my struggle, is literally my jihad? Jihad is fighting for insanity, for power, for lust, for slavery, and the ability to do whatever you want to whomever you want. Muhammad took it a step further, way farther. If you also had taken 9-year-olds, like what would stop wizards from taking 9-year-olds as brides? And lastly, in the segment 2 of psychology department, there is something that Voldemort didn't understand, and it was his downfall. That was the power of love. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Anyway, psycho. Literally a psycho, power-loving psycho. The psychology is the same. So let's talk about jihad and how that would look like in the wizarding world if Harry Potter described Britain of the 2025. And by the way, what are the chances that, after me reading Harry Potter during Yom Kippur, there was this news about the attack in Manchester synagogue by a man named Jihad? Actually pretty high. If you want to do jihad, it's probably in Yom Kippur. And I read Harry Potter on Yom Kippur every year. So on the coincidence that it's in Britain that it happened. So in a matter of time before that coincidence had happened. Would wizards participate in jihad? Why not? Why do they celebrate Christmas? Did Jesus do something that is exceptional in the wizarding world? Or did he bring some philosophy that was worthwhile and that's why they followed him? Maybe having a following is something that has to do more with psychology, the way we are, than it is with our abilities to do magic. Voldemort had cult-like following, so why not? And can you really have jihad or be a proper Nazi without a mortal enemy? The Jew. But of course, it's deeper than that. It's a spiritual war. Hitler designated the Jews as his mortal enemy, his competitors. The Jews were special for Hitler because Hitler decided that the Jews are special. Jews are even more special in Islam. Yeah, the Quran and the Hadith and everything in Islam is basically obsessed with Jews. Is it because the Jews chose it? No. It is Muhammad that marked and chose the Jews.
The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches. Born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies. And the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have power the Dark Lord knows not. And either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord will be born as the 7th month dies.
Alright, so for those who don't know, Harry Potter was a baby when Voldemort marked him as his rival due to a prophecy saying that in the end of July, a baby would be born that would be the cause of his downfall. The fun part is that if he didn't choose him as his rival, he wouldn't have a rival and no cause for a downfall. He made a choice. Muhammad, or at least the Hadith claims, had prophesied that the world wouldn't end, which is a weird cause to fight for, Muslims, a weird cause to fight for. But the last hour would not come until the Muslims fight every last Jew. All of them. Guess what? If you leave the Jews alone, they would have left you alone as well. Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, Hitler, the Pharaoh, Haman. A lot of tyrants had decided to name the Jews as their eternal enemy. It was their choice, and nobody gave them a prophecy. Actually, they had prophesied themselves that they have to fight the Jews to eternity. They wanted power.
The last hour would not come unless the Muslims would fight against the Jews and the Muslims would kiss them. Last time I quoted this, YouTube demonetized me. Until the Jews will hide themselves behind a stone or a tree in a stone, or a tree would say, Muslim or the servant of Allah, there's a Jew behind me. Come and kiss him. But the tree Garkat would not say, for it is the tree of the Jews.
And I have so many videos explaining that Jews brought to the world a lot of those things that limit power. People who don't want limits seek to destroy the Jews. That includes from within, of course. Having a whole group of people is a bit more complicated than having one person, as in Harry Potter, who died and resurrected. So, very Jewish of him. Luckily, he didn't go back to dying, but decided to have a family and everything like that, so that's good. If J.K. Rowling had allowed Harry to die in the end, that would have been extremely similar to another story, especially since he was supposed to be dead already and got resurrected as a child anyway. So Jesus, of course, was a Palestinian Muslim, according to Palestinianism people and the Muslims, and he was also Aryan according to Hitler. Funnily enough, at some point Voldemort also invited Harry Potter to join him and be on his side, and he refused. Muhammad also invited the Jews to be on his side, and the Jews also refused. Was it ever real? Probably not.
There is a Jew behind me. There is a Jew behind me. Muslim, Muslim, oh servants of Allah. There is a Jew behind me.
Actually, if you look at it as what it is, a cultural war, a spiritual war, it also means that you would have to establish certain cultural norms, the same reason the wizards are celebrating Christmas. I guess that the culture crosses boundaries and is something that is harder to limit the influence of. So if you are an immigrant, a wizard jihadist immigrant to the UK, you would not only want to establish in the wizarding community the notion that marrying a 9-year-old is completely normal, you'd probably want it to be the norm in society in general, in culture in general. Yeah, I think that the culture is so strong, it's such a strong element that you cannot not have that influence even across wizarding and non-wizarding world. It could be that. And it also could be that without the non-wizards, then the human population in general wouldn't be big enough and it's problematic all on its own. So they are there to serve a purpose, no doubt. When it comes to Hitler's religious belief, he claimed to be a German Christian. Of course, Jesus was Aryan. And he rejected the Old Testament, probably because the Old Testament is the part that which he disagreed with, just like he would have probably disagreed with the notion of not using the killing curse in Harry Potter. In Harry Potter, there is a newspaper called The Daily Prophet. And the fun thing is that when Voldemort was back, meaning when jihad was rampant, the layman didn't know what it was yet, right? Because nobody translated the Quran from Arabic yet into proper English and not taqiyya, in form of taking all the Quran and then translating into something that it doesn't say, because you don't want Westerners to understand what it says. Like, let's say it's in that phase of reality. The media in the Harry Potter world already knew, the elites already knew what they were facing, right? That the jihadists are at the rise in their own country, right? That Voldemort is back. Yet they chose to bash those who pointed out that it is real. Hardcore campaigns against Harry Potter, and people were more than happy to bash the person they knew stood in the front line against the Dark Lord and the dark powers. The wizarding world had no problem to pretend that Harry Potter is the one that is twisted when he was the one that fighting in the front lines, their number one soldier against jihad. I mean, Voldemort. He, of course, he had Dumbledore who protected him. Which in today's world, who would Dumbledore be? Somebody who's respected. I don't know if we had one. Actually, you know what? Maybe Dumbledore does exist in reality, because now that I think about it, he did consider sacrificing Harry Potter as a pawn for the greater good. And there are a lot of entities that fight for the betterment of humanity genuinely, and are more than willing to sacrifice the Jews if that's what it takes. Like the Pope, the Church in general, all of them, Westerners, Trump. Yeah, if you look at Dumbledore from that angle, then 100%. You know what? There are a lot of them, that are more than willing to take the chance of sacrificing the Jews. And also, like, the fact that he was abusing and using the boy the whole time with enough cruelty that even the one teacher that really, really hated Harry Potter, which was Snape, said to Dumbledore that he's been raising a lamb for the slaughter. Yeah, I can feel that 1%. There is one thing that made me think, maybe designating the chosen one, Harry Potter, as being the Jews isn't accurate because of, the love theme that is very Christian, though it does appear in Jewish tradition as an option. We like options. We like arguing. And in the end, he didn't finish off Voldemort. He allowed Voldemort to finish himself off. And then I thought, no, a proper Jew would have finished him off properly. And then I remembered Amalek and how we never ever managed to finish the job properly. We always give a chance for our enemies to repent and choose better until they bury themselves with their own craziness. Which, it's funny because we preach to, like, what we preach is going first and eliminating. What we do is showing them love, give them chance after chance after chance after chance until they bury themselves, basically. Which I think this is exactly what Hamas is doing as we speak. May they be finished already. I'm so tired of our giving them chances. And most of the people here are like that, so what other options do we have? Commit suicide already, will you, Hamas? Oh, I have to censor that sentence for YouTube, I guess. Would you kindly annihilate yourself, Hamas? Is this better? All right, like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you go and share this video with your friends, family, and the whole world. And, I really, really want to see this channel grow, so please help me out here. And also, if you want to see me keep doing this content, I cannot do that without your support. So Buy Me Coffee is a great website to go to. The link is down in the description below. Another option is PayPal or Patreon, where you can leave a tip so that I could keep doing what I'm doing. I cannot do it without your support. Thank you so much for being here. See you later. Side story, every person I told that I spent at Yom Kippur, I mean, let's be honest, like a couple of hours of it. So I finished half of the book, and apparently that's an easy read. So it took like maybe an hour anyway, or two, to read that much. Every person I told this is what they've been doing, or, they said, hey, did you see the amazing reply J.K. Rowling had to Emma Watson's comments on her, telling her that she is a privileged, very privileged woman who never had to use public restrooms or public facilities and wouldn't understand the dread of seeing a huge guy with a dress coming in to her area that is supposed to be safe because she had and has bodyguards with her since she was a child. Beautiful, beautiful, J.K. Rowling. That was a beautiful, beautiful reply to a privileged. Talking about like privileged beliefs, like virtue signaling. such a shame that those actors and actresses turn out to be awful. And I'm so happy that J.K. Rowling is the hero that she is. Maybe J.K. Rowling is the Dumbledore in the story, actually. All right, if you guys want to see like a full breakdown of the J.K. Rowling Emma Watson exchange, let me know. Thank you.